victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Good morning. After a long evening last night, I think we did 4 shows yesterday, 3 or 4, and then checked last night, and the boss said, hey, listen, you got to go check this out. We're going to do an early morning show, and we found out late that he wanted us to do an early morning show, and I'm like, 7:30? Are you kidding me? I'm not supposed to be up right now. No, let me rephrase that. I'm up. I'm always up at this time, but I'm not ready to do a show usually at 7:30 in the morning. I'm either going to the gym, walking the dogs, having breakfast, chilling, just chilling. But here we are, 7:30 in the morning. We got a press conference coming up with Pete Hegseth and General Caine. I guess they're going to be talking about what happened over in the Israel-Iran strike. And just to recap, let's go ahead and reread what President Trump said, because there's something very interesting that I think may come out today, but we shall see. Here's something. This is what he said. Secretary of War, so they're probably going to be changing the name. Pete Hegseth, together with military representatives. There's an S there, so I'm not sure. Maybe there's more than just General Caine. We'll be holding a major news conference tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. in order to fight for the dignity of our great American pilots. These patriots were very upset. He talks about the mission, and the interesting part is down here, where he says this news conference will prove both interesting and irrefutable. So they're going to be providing information today that is going to, without a shadow of a doubt, let everybody know, A, the leaked report was BS, and B, they're going to prove that, probably with photos and inspections or aerial satellite pictures, that there's nothing left. It's gone. And what's very interesting over the last, 24 hours, you find out that the media, including the fake media, the CNN fake media, that he wants to, in essence, destroy, and has been on a mission. In fact, his last post late last night. When was this one? This one was at 10:10 p.m. He posted this. Fake news CNN is so disgusting and incompetent, some of the dumbest anchors in the business. And he's going to back that up. Well, actually, they're probably going to back it up today, but some of the reports that came out last night shows that even CNN is starting to realize we screwed up big time. I was amazed as I was looking at some of the stuff that I'm going to share with you before the event starts. Just to let you know, I'm assuming, sometimes it's wrong to assume, but I'm assuming because this is military that it's going to be on time. I don't think we're going to be sitting here waiting until 8:30 for this thing to begin. These guys are military, and if you guys know anybody in the military, most of the time, 5 minutes early is on time. On time is late. So let's see what happens. I'm pretty sure they're going to kick this off right at 8 o'clock. But in any event, check out this video, because not only does it show a progress where CNN is starting to backtrack, it also shows something that happened also last night where the Department of Justice is going after these people who have done this leak, which may include some of the people on CNN. So let's take a listen.
Fanfare family.
Oh, that's the wrong way.
I'm B. Montague.
Asking questions is literally our job. Demanding facts and answers instead of just taking a president's word for it.
You mean like Biden, who you thought was completely stable until you decided to make $1 million writing a book about him? Oh, it's not our job to take the president's word. I swear, the entirety of liberal media, they exist because they can gaslight their audience, whatever their audience is. They expect their audience not to have any memory back. It's sort of like they went through the Will Smith thing with Men in Black. They got the little zapper in their head. And I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, it's not our job. Our job is to question the president. We just can't take his word. Except we took Biden's word to the point where Biden's words didn't even make any sense, but you took those words. That being said, let's listen to some of the analysts that they brought on last night.
Facts here. We have the very best planners, weaponeers, targeteers that put together a plan for how to use this great weapon, the MOP, and we know that plan was delivered to pilots who pulled this off in an amazing way. And it's more than the pilots. It's the joint team, the naval fires, the suppression fires, the things that the F-35s and F-22s did on their way. And the orchestration of a large package like this is a really big deal, and it went off magnificently. And from all the indications and the debriefs, the pilots and the aircraft and the weapons nailed it. They did it perfectly. So we should have, as kind of Norm said, an expectation that there was significant damage to this site.
I think you also have to...
All right, so as you were watching, that was Anderson Cooper, and the next clip is also another guest on Anderson Cooper's show, and you realize they look kind of troubled. On their own show, they brought on guests who said, yeah, they pretty much wasted that entire area, as was expected. I like that's what he said as well. This is you go on these missions, you don't hope to be successful, you expect to be successful. You understand with the power of the ordnance. You understand where you need to be. And the precision, this is one of the things that just drives me crazy listening to the media. The precision that it takes to fly 18 hours, to be refueling in air, to having the escorts, to having all the other stuff happening at the same time as one plane is coming by and boom, they drop theirs. And the next plane is coming by and boom, they drop theirs. And they all have to hit exactly where you want them. I understand it's computerized and there's a lot of guidance, but just think of that. These planes are 50,000 feet up in the air, flying at, who knows, close to the speed of sound maybe. And everything had to be perfect. And it was. And I'm sure, as President Trump has said, the pilots were probably high-fiving each other in the air going, you did it, we got it right. And you come back home and all you hear from your media is you suck. That's got to be a little bit demoralizing, even though none of these pilots are doing it for the benefit of media accolades. Nobody knows who they are. Well, nobody in the media knows who they are. Nobody knows where they're stationed, what they're doing. So it doesn't matter. They weren't doing it for the accolades. They were doing it for their country. They were doing it to make sure that the mission succeeded. But then come home and go, well, yeah, these guys suck. Here's the next guy.
Understand that initial reports are often based on the initial information received by analysts at the time, and this was very early on after the attacks were being reviewed. So the analysts at the time may not have even known the complete extent to which the Israelis and the United States had conducted all of their attacks. And keep in mind, we're talking about attacks at multiple sites. So what does that mean? So if you look at a site and you say moderate to severe damage, well, at the Iraq plutonium facility, it appears that the Israelis have destroyed the reactor. But based upon imagery, I understand that the heavy water facility next door has moderate damage. So you could have in a sentence the phrase moderate to severe damage, but your final assessment for the site would be that reactor is finished. It's not going to be making a plutonium weapon in the near future. But again, this is early stages. So what you'd want to do is over the days, you'd want to collect based on the traditional chain, human intelligence, SIGINT intelligence, a very specialized geospatial intelligence. You'd want liaison reporting to see what they're getting from their sources. And then you would have very specialized analysts who would be able to interpret this, people with nuclear background, people with very special technical and military backgrounds to understand what is happening underground, places where you wouldn't be able to necessarily see based upon the data itself, and then pull that together as a picture. I am confident that Iran has suffered a catastrophic blow to its enrichment program, its conversion to metal program, and that this has set them back for a very, very long time.
To me, it's completely amazing. Again, you can see Anderson Cooper's face. They weren't expecting these gut punches. Usually you don't bring on somebody unless you know how they're going to say it, but the bottom line here is in their exuberance, in their rush to destroy the credibility of what President Trump and Pete Hegseth have put together. They were so excited and enthusiastic that they finally had something else that they were going to use to take down President Trump. That they posted, or no, they didn't post, because nobody has actually seen this report, but somebody told somebody who told somebody whose cousin told somebody, oh, it wasn't a success, I've seen the report. And not realizing that this person, whoever they were, who's probably going to end up in jail, was giving you a very preliminary report, something that wasn't exactly accurate. That they did. Think about it. As quick, I mean, it was talking like 48 hours, and this person was giving CNN and the New York Times a report. This isn't egg on the face. This is full-on embarrassment. Again, to this media. You'd think by now, after covering President Trump, you're going to keep getting spanked in the face. It just keeps happening over and over and over. And now you've crossed over into a legal realm. Because somehow, somewhere, somebody gave you top secret information. And you chose to run with it and put it on your network.
News alert. In the past few minutes, CIA Director John Ratcliffe issuing a brand new statement on Iran's nuclear program. He said, quote, CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by the recent targeted strikes. This includes new intelligence and a historically reliable and accurate source that several key Iranian facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over a course of years. And also new this hour, cabinet officials are set to brief the Senate on Thursday, the House on Friday, regarding the strikes in Iran. That comes as new satellite images show significant damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Also, the International Atomic Energy Agency says the Iranian nuclear program has been set back by years, not months.
It's just a matter of time they're going to rebuild. Yeah, that's true if you allow them to rebuild. And the other thing is, excuse me, they're going to have to find the people. Remember, all the scientists got into the ether as well. They took those guys out beforehand. So whoever talked to CNN didn't give them a full assessment. And it was impossible for them to have a full assessment because they weren't involved in the mission. But for some reason, CNN and the New York Times decided to run with this for nothing more than pure embarrassment, to try and take down or give a ding to the Trump administration, further damaging their credibility. I mean, it's been shrinking for quite some time. How much more can people take from CNN? How much more can people take from MSNBC and sometimes even Fox before they realize these people are not in it for America? They will glorify this guy up in New York, this commie, who's trying to run for mayor of New York City, which now I'm beginning to think is going to get blasted, who may end up seeing a landslide defeat. We'll talk about that in the 1 o'clock show. But let's continue.
Not what is reported by the New York Times and CNN, and have you believe, not months, but years. And that is sources within the Defense Intelligence Agency tell Fox that the report relied on by CNN and the New York Times was based on a single day's worth of intelligence. That's it. One day. And even if these facilities were not obliterated, the damage it caused was severe and significantly set back Iran's nuclear program.
Todd, the Pentagon's working with the FBI to investigate this leak. Is the DOJ prepared to charge whoever is responsible, and what could those charges look like?
All right, so I think we should be looking at the T, the full-on treason. And it's funny, as I look in some of the comments, I know SV and Ashley always tell me, don't pay any attention to the nuts. The nuts are already here. Oh, I think this was a psyop. That just tells you right there. I'm not even going to put it up, but somebody in here went, oh, that's just a psyop to distract a failed psyop. The brainwashing of people and what the media does actually works. There are trolls and there are people out there who think it, quote, was a failed psyop. It was a distraction to take away from this or that. So what you're saying is we flew 12 B-2 billion-dollar airplanes across the world with all the refueling capacity and support vehicles, the destroyers, the aircraft carriers, all that. just for cosplay? That's what they try to get you to believe. And then tell you it wasn't successful. So there's a few questions. I mentioned it before in the show. One of those questions was, if it wasn't successful, why did Iran agree to cease fire? And number two, if it wasn't successful, the B-2s were over there. I'm sure some of them still had armament with them to do other damage. There's a big hole right there. Do you think maybe they could have flown to one of the other bases in the area and just dropped more to finish it off? They can see the still beating heart of a nuclear program. Why'd they turn back and come back home? They must have had some initial assessment. We've gotten to a point where people no longer trust anything. which is fine if you then go do your own research. I don't ask anybody to trust anything. What I'm saying is if you do hear something, now you say, let me go do the research. Let me find out on my own what kind of information is out there to back up what this person, that person, this person, whatever we say, go look it up. Don't be some idiot who takes what these people at a grain of salt and just runs with it, which is really interesting in that first clip that I showed you of Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper came out and said, what are we supposed to do? Just take the president's word for it? Jake, I would ask you another question. What are you supposed to do? Just to take the word of this anonymous source? The gaslighting, when you start looking at it and hearing the propaganda, you realize they're completely BSing people. They tried to pretend like, we can't take the word of the president, but you're going to take the word of who? Because we've watched you put these people on air. We've watched you go ahead and make these reports, and time after time after time, there's no correction ever issued. Oh, yeah, we screwed that one up. Oh, yeah, we screwed that one up. Yeah, we're getting sued for $1 billion. Yeah, over and over and over. It must be one of the most perilous positions to have at this point. Well, actually, not too perilous, because then you hide behind the First Amendment and your sources. Well, hopefully at this point, with what Mr. Blanche is going to say here, these sources now get to, reach the FO part of the FA.
I mean, absolutely. Of course we're ready. I mean, just think for a moment. During the last administration, the Attorney General issued a memorandum that didn't allow the Department of Justice to investigate leakers without some insane level of a high level of finding that you would have to do first. We reversed that.
All right. See, now there's something a lot of people don't know. Todd Blanche just told you something that you guys should write down and go check out. The previous administration actually put into law or practice that you couldn't go after leakers unless you did this, and this. Why would you do that? Why would you put into paper, into practice that you can't investigate leakers unless you do all these different things first? Because it was there to protect the leakers. They knew Trump was coming in, and they're like, we need to get people inside here. You remember Comey? Yeah, we sent some guys over. Hey, they want this. They want to do anything they can to get their tentacles into the Trump administration. But this one was top secret, and nobody knew anything about it. So the third question I would ask is, this guy, this woman, whoever it is that issued New York Times this report, if they were so credible, how come they didn't know anything on the front side? How come they had to wait till everything was done and then get a peek at some preliminary report? Why didn't they get a peek at the battle plan? Maybe because they weren't that high up. They're exposing that just by the fact of saying what they've been saying. Hey, listen, breaking news, we understand that the B-2's in the air and they're going to be dropping bombs on Iran pretty soon. Nope, you didn't hear that report. Why? Because the leaker wasn't privy to the information, which tells you that the leaker is a low-level idiot. Otherwise, they would have had information on both sides.
The Attorney General Bondi reversed that over a month ago, and it's precisely for this kind of conduct, where you have some deep state intelligence personnel, not based on the facts, not based on the truth, but based on something that they want an agenda that they have to thwart President Trump. They issue something like this and then leak it to CNN and the New York Times, where the New York Times article has 5 reporters on the case, and that's to mask how they got that information. So we are now going to investigate that completely and fully. And so you better believe, and the American people better know for sure, that this is exactly the type of conduct that we will investigate fully.
Steve Witkoff last night on The Angle said, from his perspective, he's a pretty smart guy, this is treasonous. Your reaction to that?
Listen, I couldn't agree more with what he said as far as the damage that this could do. I mean, it's terrible. And so whether it's treasonous and whether someone will be charged with treason, listen, we'll work that out. But you better.
I feel butt puckering. See, this guy's in the Department of Justice. He's Pam Bondi's number 2, I believe. And he was asked, is this going to be treasonous? And it would have been very easy just to say, no, it doesn't reach the level of treason. And he didn't take that off the table. Very artfully dodged the question. You know, we're going to have to investigate, going to look at some things. Right off the bat, treason is such a huge word, such a big charge. Probably the biggest charge in our country. Maybe even a bigger charge than murder. And the Department of Justice number 2 just said, maybe. So right now there better be some serious sphincter tightening going on. Ooh, ouch.
I believe that the Department of Justice is going to do everything we can to find out who did this.
Well, you can already hear the media caterwauling about the Trump administration going after the First Amendment, eviscerating freedom of the press. This would require your bringing reporters in and getting depositions by reporters. There are 5 on that story, as you said. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes. I mean, of course. I mean, it's a criminal.
Now, here's what happens with that. Of course, they're going to lean on the whole First Amendment. I'm not required to, divulge my sources and all this kind of crap, which has been a staple for people in the media forever. I can't give up my sources. The whole Watergate thing. We just can't give up our sources. Except, if I'm pretty sure if you get charged with treason, you might want to give up your sources. Because if you get charged with treason, I would have to double and triple verify, but you could be facing, you could be done. So it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And who knows, they may hold you in Gitmo pending. These people who got involved in this story, their lives are about to change, and not for the better. And one of the things that'll happen is one of these 4 or 5 reporters that he's talking about, all it's going to take is one. They're going to squeeze the hell out of these 5 people, the 4 people, whatever, to see which one wants the deal. You've seen it in the movies. You've seen it on television. Hey, listen, we got your other people down the hall here. We're squeezing the hell out of all of them. Guess what? You don't want to be the one without a chair when the music stops. The first one that talks gets the deal. The rest of you might hang. And one thing we've seen with these reporters, they're not the most, testosterone-laden guys you've ever seen. So you're going to have to do some thinking. You can talk, Fred can talk, Susie can talk, somebody going to talk here. One of you. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for what's about to happen? You're going to have the full force of the United States government coming down on everything you've done in your life. They're going to check your bank accounts. They're going to check your phone records. They're going to check all kinds of things. Your Ring doorbell. They're going to look at everything. We're about to put a microscope like the size of the Smithsonian up your rear end. So, let me know what you want to do. I'll be down the hall talking to one of your buds. Okay? Yeah, let me know.
Investigation, there's somebody within this government that is a top secret or maybe even higher level security clearance who felt it was okay to contact CNN and the New York Times and leak something that is not only highly sensitive, not only extraordinarily secret, but also not vetted, not accurate, and they knew that.
Yeah, but what about the possibility, it is a possibility I would imagine, that this is a member of Congress who actually did this? Then what?
Even more so.
Well, I mean, you tell me, Laura, if a member of Congress, who very few of whom are shared this very sensitive information, we based on the reporting, shortly after information was sent to the members of Congress, this leaked. If it was a member of Congress himself or herself who leaked this, are they immune from criminal liability for putting the safety of the United States of America at risk? Nowhere that I read.
So you would say that that would not be covered under the immunity clause of the Constitution, that behavior? I'm not aware of an immunity clause that protects anybody in this country from disclosing classified, top secret, or even higher information to the New York Times. If such a statute exists, it has not been presented to me.
Which tells me, what if there's a possibility if it was indeed a member of Congress? What if it was a sitting member of Congress who did this? What would be the chances of that they gave a couple different people a dummy report? If they wanted to sniff out if who was lying and who was going to be doing some things, it'd be very simple to give somebody a report and see what they did with it. Remember, Schumer was crying. He hadn't seen anything. Hakeem Jeffries was crying. He hadn't seen anything. So who maybe had gotten a copy of this so-called report? I don't know. I can't wait till they come up. Actually, I said they were going to be on time. It's 8:01 and nobody has walked out to the podium, so we're behind in that regard. But this should be pretty interesting. Now, if you guys were here for the last press conference, you also know it was really short. The Department of Defense comes out, lays out facts, and they're gone. So this probably won't last more than 25 or 30 minutes. We shall see. So give you a little programming update in terms of what's going on today, because it's another busy, probably 3-show day today. We've got this going on right now. Then at 12:30, we've got Caroline Leavitt. She's holding a press conference, which is always entertaining. And then 4 o'clock, President Trump has an event. I hope they do it live. If they don't do it live, then I'll come up with something else. But at 4 o'clock, there's an event at the White House. I believe it is going to be live because I've checked my feeds, and the feeds show 4 o'clock this event. So he's got a big, beautiful bill campaign that he's going to be doing. That's at 4 o'clock. So got this show, 12:30, the press conference with Caroline, and then 4 o'clock, rather 3:30, with President Trump. So that's what I got going on, coming in. Let's see here. SV, what's going on, buddy? It lures them in, scans them with cameras, and sends a warning of disease. I'm not even sure what that is. All right. Jake Tapper is guilty. Watch his expression. Yep, they know. They all know something's coming. Let's see, don't get sick now. Barry has been starting early lately. Barry has been finishing late and starting early, doing both ends. My wife says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." And it was funny because SV told me last night, he hits me up with the breaking news, and I'm like, "Are you serious? 8 o'clock in the morning?" So in order to do an early morning show, you got to get up another hour in advance, because then you got to plan and get all the information and bring the story up to where we're going, because now we're talking about Department of Defense and all this leaking stuff. So I had to find information, and so I'm up, and Midas is looking at me like, "What in the hell are we doing?" This is when we usually go for a ride or something. But anyway, I think Pete comes out with vengeance. Well, okay, here we go. Let's get to it. Feed one.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just arrived last night back from NATO, 2 days apart from my battle buddy, so it's good to see him this morning. Good to see you, Mr. Chairman.
You too, sir.
Where there was a historic outcome. I want to start with that real quick. I think there's so much news, so many things happening, that oftentimes big, momentous moments get missed. What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal. You see, we're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal. You see, we're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press corps miss historic moments. You miss historic moments like 5% at NATO, which when you hear, I was in the closed door briefing, I wish there could have been cameras in there. When you heard the prime ministers and presidents of other countries, to a man and to a woman, looking at President Trump and saying, this never could have happened, never would have happened. It seemed impossible 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 8 years ago. But here we are because of your leadership. If you asked them the question, I bet they'd say the same thing. But searching for scandals, you miss historic moments, like recruiting at the Pentagon. Historic levels in the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Yeah, maybe there'll be a little mention here or there, but because it was under President Trump's leadership, because Americans are responding to him as commander-in-chief, the press corps doesn't want to write about it. Or bring us to the topic of the moment, the highly successful strikes in Iran. Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history, and it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. I want to read some of the assessments that have been provided, because whether it's fake news, CNN, MSNBC, or the New York Times, there's been fawning coverage of a preliminary assessment. I've had a chance to read it. Every outlet has breathlessly reported on a preliminary assessment from DIA. I'm looking at it right now. Again, it was preliminary, a day and a half after the actual strike, when it admits itself in writing that it requires weeks to accumulate the necessary data to make such an assessment. It's preliminary. It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. And yet, still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage. Again, this is preliminary, but leaked because someone had an agenda to try to muddy the waters and make it look like this historic strike wasn't successful. I'm going to get to the chairman in a moment because he's going to lay out the particulars for you based on his professional military experience. But here's what other folks are saying. The DIA that put that report out says this is a preliminary low-confidence report and will continue to be refined as additional intelligence becomes available. How about the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission? The devastating U.S. strikes on Fordow destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility inoperable. Have any of these quotes made their way into the New York Times or the Washington Post? MSNBC? CNN? Any of these quotes? How about this one? This is a new one from the UN, the United Nations. No friend of the United States, or certainly Israel often. Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency this morning, Rafael Grossi. U.S. and Israeli strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Don't take my word for it. How about the IDF's chief of staff? I can say here that the assessment is that we significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. I repeat, years. The Iranian foreign minister, the spokesman, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged, that's for sure. I'm sure that's an understatement. John Radcliffe, the director of the CIA, putting out a statement just last night. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by recent targeted strikes. This includes new intelligence from a historically reliable, very different than preliminary assessment with low confidence. He's saying historically reliable and accurate source and method that several key Iranian nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over the course of years. CIA continues to collect additional reliably sourced information to keep appropriate decision makers fully informed. How about DNI Tulsi Gabbard yesterday? She writes, and I quote, "New intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed." Institute for Science and International Security President David Albright, overall, Israel and U.S. attacks have effectively destroyed Iran's centrifuge enrichment program. Time and time again, I can go down the list. Those that understand, those that see, those that do proper assessments recognize that what the United States military did was historic. And again, before I pass it to the chairman, because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack, and we should celebrate it as Americans. And it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years, and no other presidents had the courage to actually do. So with that, I want to hand it over to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They've done technical analysis on this, not just on the strike, but also on our Patriot defenders, on Al Udeid. And Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, and all of you. Thank you for being here. As a follow-up to my comments on Sunday's press conference, I wanted to give you a few updates this morning on something I'm honored to do as a chairman, and that's a chance to get to talk about some of our service members and the incredible things that they do on behalf of our nation. And I apologize ahead of time for the length and the detail. Today, I'm going to brief you on a couple things. First, I'm going to talk about our air defenders at Al-Udeid in Qatar and their actions on Monday. Then I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the academics that went into the attack against Fordo, the massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and we're going to show a video that highlights the effects that weapon has. Of course, nobody was down inside the target, so we don't have video from the target. First, on Monday, as the President has stated, on Monday morning we began to receive indications and warnings that Iran intended to attack U.S. bases in the region. That morning, building on the work that CENTCOM Commander Eric Kurilla had done, and on the orders of the President, at Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar and around the region, we assumed a minimum force posture. Most folks had moved off the base to extend the security perimeter out away from what we assessed might be a target zone, except for a very few Army soldiers at Al-Udeid. At that point, only 2 Patriot batteries remained on base, roughly 44 American soldiers responsible for defending the entire base, to include CENTCOM's forward headquarters in the Middle East, an entire air base, and all the U.S. forces there. The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain. The youngest was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years. So let's put ourselves out there for a second. Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this base. Listening next to you is your early warning operator whose job is to notify you of imminent attack. There's 5 people inside a vehicle and 5 people outside of a vehicle around these, a total of, as I said, 44. By the way, you've sat in the Middle East for years, deployed over and over again, extended multiple times, always being prepared, but unsure of when that particular day will come that you must execute your mission and not fail at doing it. In this case, these Patriot crews were deployed from Korea and Japan as part of our U.S. forces there to ensure that we had the most capable missiles in the CENTCOM area of responsibility. As the day continues, you start to hear more and more chatter in the information space about a pending attack. And as the sun starts to set in the west, you get orders from your higher headquarters to make sure that your missile batteries are pointed to the north. There are just a few other teammates. It's hot, you're getting nervous, and you expect an attack. Outside of those Patriot vehicles, your hot crew, which is 1 NCO and 4 additional soldiers, turns a key and relinquishes control of those missiles to that young lieutenant inside the vehicle. And you wait. You know that you're going to have approximately 2 minutes, 120 seconds to either succeed or fail. And then at approximately 12:30 p.m. on Monday, that's 7:30 p.m. in Qatar, as the sun sets in the west, Iran attacks. As the targets were detected, round after round of Patriot missiles are ejected from their canisters by an initial launch charge. Then the main solid rocket motor ignites. You can feel this in your body if you've ever been around a Patriot taking a shot. And round after round goes out and guides against those missiles coming inbound. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. And we were joined in this engagement by the Qatari Patriot crews. I'm not going to tell you how many rounds were shot, but it was a bunch because of classified purposes. And we're aware that there's reports of something getting through. What we do know is there was a lot of metal flying around. Between attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, boosters from attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, the Patriots themselves flying around, and the debris from those Patriots hitting the ground, there was a lot of metal flying around. And yet our U.S. air defenders had only seconds to make complex decisions with strategic impact. These awesome humans, along with their Qatari brothers and sisters in arms, stood between a salvo of Iranian missiles and the safety of Al-Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army. And I know a lot of you have seen the videos online and the excitement as those Patriots departed their launchers and went up and guided. This really demonstrates the combat capability and capacity of our Army air defenders. Simply stated, they absolutely crushed it. If you'd flip this over, thanks. Let me next move to a walkthrough of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapon and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you. There's an organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordo, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these two Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled with the pride of being a part of this team. I am so honored to be a part of this." To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families. Operation Midnight Hammer was the culmination of those 15 years of incredible work. The air crews, the tanker crews, the weapons crews that built the weapons, the load crews that loaded it. Before I run through this video today, I want to talk a little bit about weaponeering and what goes into an attack. Weaponeering is the science of evaluating a target. I mentioned all of those factors before that these two DTRA officers had thought about. Ultimately, weaponeering is determining the right weapon and fuse combination to achieve the desired effects and maximum destruction against a target. In the case of Fordo, the DTRA team understood with a high degree of confidence the elements of the target required to kill its functions, and the weapons were designed, planned, and delivered to ensure that they achieve the effects in the mission space. By the way, in the beginning of its development, we had so many PhDs working on the MOP program, doing modeling and simulation, that we were quietly and in a secret way the biggest users of supercomputer hours within the United States of America. So let me talk about the graphic a little bit. And the GBU-57, which all of you I know is a 30,000-pound weapon dropped only by the B-2. It's comprised of steel, explosive, and a fuse, programmed bespokely each weapon to achieve a particular effect inside the target. Each weapon had a unique desired impact angle, arrival, final heading, and a fuse setting. The fuse is effectively what tells the bomb when to function. A longer delay in a fuse, the deeper the weapon will penetrate and drive into the target. So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work. The video I'm about to show you is a culmination of over 15 years of development and testing. As I said, hundreds of test shots on various models. This is one weapon. So if you take a view of this as 5 additionals, you'll get a sense of what this looks like. Hopefully you can see it and there's not too much reflection. Tom runs our videos out there. We'll run it at full speed so you can see it and then go back through it. Go ahead, Tom. Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space. Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has three effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over. A point that I want to make here: the Joint Force does not do BDA. By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. And we know this through other means, intelligence means that we have, that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them. And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight." Let me now turn to the bomber crews themselves, give you a few details about them. The crews that attacked Fordo were from the active duty Air Force and the Missouri Air National Guard. The crews ranked from captain to colonel, and most were graduates of the Air Force Weapons School headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I will state for the record that there is no beach volleyball or football at the Air Force Weapons School. They were male and female aviators on this mission. And a crew member told me when I talked to them on video the other day that this felt like the Super Bowl, the thousands of scientists, airmen, and maintainers all coming together. One last story about people. When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up overhead Whiteman, proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we test, we evaluate every single day. And when the call comes to deliver, we do so. I could not be more proud standing up here today of our Joint Force. I'm filled with gratitude that I get to tell their story. And as we stand here right now, our forces remain on a high state of readiness in the region, prepared to defend themselves. And one last thing, our adversaries around the world should know that there are other DTRA team members out there studying targets for the same amount of time, and will continue to do so. Thank you very much. I apologize for the length. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just thank you, by the way, for that extensive work, the lay down. I mean, even, do you have that laser pointer? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, squaring me away as always. I mean, even in just the public reporting, if you see the post-strike shaft of the 3 holes, the vast majority, and fairly so, the vast majority of speculation has been, those are the 3 strike points. When in actuality, what you realize is these are the vents, these are the caps, the first munition took the cap off, and the other 5 went down the center hole, which if you're planning the target, you would want it to be the direct one going to the bottom. These are the types of things that go into the planning for a strike that the Pentagon would not expect the press corps, the American people, to initially understand. So laying this information out is helpful, but it's also why we ask for a beat. for a moment, for a day or two, the opportunity to tell that story, because as the chairman said, these men and women that did this mission, they just want to do their job. They're not expecting their story to be told. They're not expecting the glory. They are grateful for the flags and the hugs of family. That's why they do the job. But they also know they were a part of something historic. We know how historic it was. The chairman does. I know. Our staffs know. And so that's why we are, and the president of the United States knows. And that's why it's almost personal when we see the way in which leaks are used to try to disparage the outcome or muddy the waters about the impact of what happened without being responsible with information and allowing the professionals to assess and provide that information just like the chairman did. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that information. Sure. And we welcome a few additional questions. Yes, sir.
General, on Sunday you said final battle damage will take some time. And you also said, I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there at the nuclear facility. So that was just over 3 days ago. So what has changed? Would you use the term obliterated as well?
Sure, like I said, we don't do BDA. I'll refer that to the intelligence community. And
you're talking with them. I mean, what changed in the past 3 days and make you so, you know?
Sir, I think I
think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence. Again, when someone leaks something, they do it with an agenda. And when you leak a portion of an intelligence assessment, but just a little portion that makes it seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective, then you start a news cycle, whether it's the Washington Post or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, you start a news cycle that starts to call into question the efficacy. No, that's why. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He doesn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated. He could use defeat, destroyed, assess, all of those things. But ultimately, we're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, two eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of firepower with that specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating effect. So we all recognize there will be days and weeks ahead. That's why yesterday I said, if you want to know what's going on at Fort O, you better go there and get a big shovel, because no one's under there right now. No one's under there able to assess, and everyone's using reflections of what they see. And that's why the Israelis, the Iranians, the IAEA, the UN, to a man and to a woman who recognize the capability of this weapon system, are acknowledging how destructive it's been. So that's what's changed.
Just 3 or 4 days later. What
see, this is a point. This is how difficult it is to actually manage. You just watched a video of what this weapon is capable of. That's where we find our confidence, is in the skill of men and women and the capability of the systems they employed, and the recognition so far in the reflections that it was a highly successful mission.
Sure, I think you could, I'd say go out, the IC should be able to help you answer that question. They look at a variety, as the Secretary has alluded to, we look at a variety of things. I don't do that, they do. All different sources of intel, which I'd refer you to them to get clarity on the end state.
So again, I go back to the IC, whether it's Director Radcliffe or ODNI Gabbard. I read the statements at the beginning. They're the ones aggregating the intelligence, and they're saying nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over a number of years. Facilities were destroyed. What do we got right here?
Sir, you cited a body of credible intelligence to suggest the damage at Fort O and other places. What is that referring to, and when can we see it?
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine, the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know, and he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence. They or those processes have given credible intelligence in the past, and that's what he's basing it on.
Don't you think we need to see that?
Do you have a top secret clearance, sir?
Eventually, the American public wants to see it.
Yes. Yeah, you.
I wanted to ask briefly just.
No, not you. Checkered shirt.
Oh, so Mike Glenn with the Washington Times.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Anybody who's ever read a Battalion S2 report after a fight knows that it's usually, the initial report is usually wrong, sometimes grossly so. Has what happened in this incident caused you all to sort of rethink the intelligence process or the dissemination, or do you think it's just a matter, I mean, if the process itself doesn't require any more adjustment?
Well, I can tell you what the chairman told me in the Situation Room and reminded us all, which is alongside what you just said, sir, is that the first reports are almost always wrong. They're almost always incomplete, right? Anything, whether it's a squad level operation or a strategic level operation, the initial reflections you get are coming at you at a high rate of speed from a lot of different sources. So your job is to step back and assess them. And that's why we're urging caution about premising entire stories on biased leaks to biased publications trying to make something look bad. How about we take a beat, recognize first the success of our warriors, hold them up, tell their stories, celebrate that, wave an American flag, be proud of what we accomplished. And in the meantime, I can assure you, the chairman and his staff, the intelligence community, our staff and others are doing all the assessments necessary to make sure that mission was indeed successful. Yes, right there.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Iran has recognized that their nuclear program was indeed severely damaged, but they also said that the U.S. strikes only strengthened their ability and their determination to complete their nuclear program. How do you respond to that, sir? Is that a provocation from Iran?
Well, I would say Iran's going to have to say a lot of things right now in order to bolster their image, especially internally. You know, in the media, there's a lot of things they'll say for domestic consumption. But we're watching very closely what they do. Again, that's the intel community. Our job as the chairman, the chairman laid it out so beautifully. Our job is to be prepared. And how proud are you? How proud am I? I didn't know the full story of those men and women 15 years ago who've been pointing at that target. That makes me proud to be an American. That's an awesome story. I hope we can tell more aspects of that in an unclassified way in the future. That's a great thing to know. Our job is to be prepared when the commander-in-chief calls based on those assessments. So, of course, our IC, the Intelligence Committee, will keep watching what Iran does and pay attention to that. But the president has created the contours, the opportunity for a deal, for peace, in something that the world said was intractable, that wasn't possible. And we got that peace, that ceasefire, that option, because of strength, because of his willingness to use American military might that no one else on the planet can do with the kind of planners and operators that the chairman just laid out. Yes, sir. Right there. Yep.
Me, sir? Just a quick question. There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that? And Mr. Chairman, a question for you. Have you been pressured to change your assessment or give a more rosy intelligence assessment to us by any political factors, whether it's the president or the secretary? And if you were, would you do that?
Yeah, well, that one's easy. No. No, I have not, and no, I would not. My job as the chairman is to offer a range of options to the president and the National Command Authority to deliver the risks associated with each of those, and then take the orders of the National Command Authority and go execute them. I've never been pressured by the president or the secretary to do anything other than tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and that's exactly what I've done.
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
That's not the question, though. It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst. The one who misrepresents the most intentionally what the president says. I'm familiar.
I about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night, and in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So we're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
Are you serious?
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does.
Oh, my
right?
God.
Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. Very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and gender in this department that's changed priorities. We don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games. Yes,
You
right
know
there.
for certain that the uranium was removed from the facility before the B-2 struck.
So I'm not aware of any intelligence that I've reviewed that says things were not where they were supposed to be, moved or otherwise. Yes.
Kelly Meyer with News Nation, and just off the top, want to say we're grateful for the service of these pilots and everybody that serves. I wanted to ask you, the CIA statement said, when possible, they will provide updates and information to the public for transparency, and I believe that's what we're looking for here. Do you commit to share the Defense Intelligence Agency report when it is ready, so the American people can understand more about the intelligence assessment?
Well, actually, the report that was discussed, this preliminary report, was what's called a restrike report. So it comes to us to give us an assessment whether a target would need to be restruck, right? That's the reason why. So it's based on internal feedback loop that we're supposed to have access to. Unfortunately, someone took advantage of that. But whatever is supposed to be made public will be, but whatever has to stay sensitive.
Sir, can I jump in? You know, one of the things that I'm trying to do through this journey that we're on together, of course, transparency, but also the requirement to really protect these capabilities. I guess the time's up. So there's a balance in there, right? We do need to preserve options should the nation and the joint force be tasked to go do something again. So I'm confident we'll find the middle ground, but there are some things that if asked, I want to not release related to.
So we're going to leave it right there. I want to thank the heroism of our men and women in the military. What they accomplished is truly historic, setting back the Iranian nuclear program untold number of years. It was a devastating attack. We appreciate you covering it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Talk a little bit more about the role, sir.
Wow. Wow. If you weren't sure before, you should be sure now that we are living in anti-American times. Between the trolls and the media and the commies and the Marxists, we're at war. If you don't see that, we are at war at this point internally. We're looking at a civil war. Hold on one second. Let me turn down this volume. We're looking at people who want harm done to this country. And I told you last night, if you guys joined me for last night's show, something happened. Maybe it was about all of this with Israel and Iran, but something happened where it's obvious at this point Trump has told everybody in the administration, take off the gloves, just smack these people, smack them down to their face. Don't give them any quarter. Go right back at them. And I think we should be taking that lead as well. I think what he is doing and the mission he has put these people on is don't take any smack. And so when you see trolls in the comments, whether it be here or Rumble, don't sit back and ask for SV. Go at them. Tell them, kiss my ass. I'm an American. I'm done with this stuff. We have got to get righteously angry. We got to get Jesus in the temple type of angry. They're coming for you. And if you don't see that, you're missing the entirety of the story. The story isn't so much that the media is being belligerent, it's that they're intentionally being belligerent because they don't give a crap what America does, and their entire objective is to destroy, denigrate, and attack everything Trump does. Everything. The suit he wears, the tie he wears, how he combed his hair, it doesn't matter. Attack, 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 attack. And so what do you do if somebody's attacking you? You fight back. And I think President Trump has told everybody, we're done. Wrap it up. Let's go. Somebody says something you don't like, I got your back. Go after 'em. Can you believe one of those reporters asked, why aren't you recognizing that there were female pilots? We're gone. It's over. These people are props. At this point, you have to look at them and realize every single one of them sitting there, including Jennifer Griffith from Fox, which is not a home team place, not a home field advantage at all. These people are scum, like President Trump said. And he looked at, and he used to work with her, so he knows you're one of the worst. He just let us all know. With no uncertainty whatsoever, Pete Hegseth looked at Jennifer Griffith from Fox News, looked her right in the face and said, you're one of the worst. I don't know how these people can go back on television. Jennifer, Caitlin Collins, I mean, you name them. They've been exposed as being complete hacks. Why the hell would anybody watch that shit? Excuse my language early in the morning. But I'm fired up myself right now. It's 8:50. I'm like, okay, that set the tone for my day. I hope it set the tone for your day. Don't take any crap from anybody. Anybody. That's what they count on. You sat there and looked at a 5-star general and you questioned a 5-star general? That 5-star general didn't get all those stars since January. He earned those over years. He's been battle tested, and you had the nerve to question. Are you just saying this because it's politically right? Huh? You lucky that guy didn't jump over that podium and choke the life out of you and then piss in your empty skull. Man, unbelievable. Saying I'm glad our boys made it home. It's just a saying, people. It's like I want to rip your face off. It's just a saying. I'm not really... Oh, God, man. Jennifer Griffith's husband is a reporter for NPR. I did not know that. I don't know why these people are still braving American air. That's a good point. You don't like it? Go to Iran. See how life is over there. Everything they do about destroying America is in a place that they wouldn't want to live. There are people who thought, because of their virtue and their white privilege, that it was fine in London to bring in as many newcomers as possible. Bring them all in. Oh, it's fantastic. We're going to be diverse. Oh, yeah. You can't vote your way out of it. You can't sue your way out of it. It's there. I've been to Rome. I've never been to London. Now I never will go to London. I don't want to submit my wife to this stuff. We're teetering on the brink of, do we ever want to go to France? Just imagine, there are actual countries now that used to be unbelievable places to go on vacation, and now you have to think, I don't want to go there. And I don't want that to be like here. Thank God Ron DeSantis is guarding Florida with everything he possibly can to keep life here the way it's supposed to be. I hope the governors and people in your areas, wherever you live, are doing exactly the same. Rooting out all the idiots. If the one pops up, chop its head off. Tired of it, man. No, they don't get it. They don't get it. You got New York is being set up for a 9/11. No, they won't have to do a 9/11. Just realize it. No, see, 9/11 was an attack. Whoever did it, wink, wink, wink. But 9/11 was an attack. You don't have to. No shots are being fired. They're using votes as bullets. Think about that. They're going to take over certain parts of this country without ever having to resort to anything like 9/11. There's no bombing happening in Minnesota. We own it. There are parts of Minnesota that are basically Somali at this point. They never had to go to war. So sometimes when I hear about terrorist attack, we already own it. We're gonna own New York in a couple months, so we don't need to blow it up. We're gonna own all this. That's what they're thinking. maybe if he loses in November, they'll say, man, now we need to act up. But let's not burn anything right now. We might own this pretty soon. We're going to run this. What do you think is going to happen if New York becomes like Londonistan? Crazy. Can't believe New Yorkers would put up with that. You know what? Those of you who've ever been to New York or spent time in New York, you know New Yorkers have always been renowned for being the most, we don't give a F people you ever want to meet. Almost to a fault. Man, New York is mean, man. People are cold up here. Like, get the out of here. Get out of here. And now, you guys are on the brink of turning into a third world country? I think you're going to see something in November that's going to shock people. I think it's going to be overwhelming once they realized and woke up and said, okay, and what's Dan used to say? QC time is over. That was nice. You came into play. You tricked us. Most of us didn't even pay attention. We're at the baseball game, we're at a football game, or, skating rink, whatever. We're doing stuff. We're living life. And we weren't paying attention to some 20-something upstart. I can't say it. I'm on YouTube. You know what I was going to say. Commie. And so they weren't paying attention. But if what I think is happening in New York, based on the people who have contacted me, I think they're in for a rude awakening in November. I think the forces that be are about to descend both sides. They're going to get a whole bunch of dark money for this kid. A whole lot of dark money. They have, right now, they see an opportunity, and they're absolutely salivating on getting New York. Can you imagine if they? I can't. But I think it's gonna. I think it's going to be overwhelming. I think people who in New York are going to wake up and realize, hey man, I'm all good with the virtue signaling and stuff, and I support the DEI stuff, but y'all crazy, and this ain't happening. Socialist Marxist Party, exactly. All right, so what did it say? Even Chicago Tribune warned New York. Yeah, see, there was a lot of uproar, and people are now realizing, hey, we kind of let this thing slide by mistake. Wow, crazy. All right, so I am going to jump because we got a whole bunch planned. Again, 12:30, we'll have the pre-show for the 1 o'clock press conference with Caroline Levitt. Hope you can join us for that. And then at 4 o'clock, we have President Trump doing an event. Not sure what that is in terms of how it's comprised, but we'll cover that. And then, if I'm not too exhausted from doing those three shows, then we'll do something tonight. So the 7 o'clock show tonight might be maybe tonight would be a good night for movie night. Maybe I could show you guys a movie tonight. J.J. Carell's got a good movie. Yeah, we'll think about that. I may have to take somewhat of a hiatus and just chill tonight because I've been running hard. You guys let me know in the chat and send me, let us know if you'd like to see like a movie night tonight where we all can sit and watch something troubling, because J.J. Carell's been doing some stuff with investigating about the kids and stuff that, might be hard to watch, but he told me I could indeed show the movie. And also John Amanchaku told me I could show his movie as well. So we could do a movie tonight. Maybe we can do Michael Flynn's movie, The Enemy from Within. Either way, that's what we're going to do tonight, because I'll need to put my feet up and maybe grab some popcorn, and we'll watch a movie, and we'll do like Mystery Theater 3000, and we'll all take a view at some movie today, and we'll cut in every once in a while like a commercial, and hey, how you guys think? What do you about? Blah blah blah. We'll talk about it. So we made the call. Ready? We're gonna break. Tonight will be a movie night on Rumble after we do the jump over. All right, so 12:30. The press conference, 4 o'clock, or rather 3:30 for President Trump, and then tonight at Rumble we'll do movie night. That being said, let me look at super chats because I almost forgot, and SB would have said bing, 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 bing. Man, I don't even know why people would ever tune in to CNN or some of these places anymore. It's just... wow, what a hostile group of scumbags these people are. Just Unbelievable. I mean, I'm glad he called out Jennifer Griffith because so many people haven't realized, just exactly who she is and what she's been all about. This will be quick. There's only a couple here for me to recognize. Recognize. All right, here we go. And we're going to say thank you to Miss Avi. Thank you very much. Judith Fleischman, I'm awake now. And Benedetta Salerno, I think these idiots are given praise by how much they can aggravate our patriots and the president, and they should be banned from these sessions. I think they only do it and invite them in because, one, they have to. I think there's some rule that says you have to bring these people in, so they do that. And the other thing is, if they can change one person's mind, they can change somebody who's watching and realize, hey, these people are nuts. Maybe it's worth it. All right, so I'll put on the after party, and then I got to jump because I've got an interview at 11. I've got to record before the press conference. All right, so where am I? Here we go. What, did I forget something? Oh, wait a minute. There's a Rumble super chat. SB just told me. I always forget to look at those. Let me see here. Oh, there's a couple from Rumble. Diamond says, hammer on 3 more years of proud pro-America browbeat. Yeah, I got it. I am happy to love my country again. Absolutely. And one Woundress says, you don't hate the media enough. Fox TV for stupid people, Communist News Network, MSDNC, ABC, CBS. They're horrible. They're all absolutely horrible. Thank you guys, everybody, for getting up early. Go eat your breakfast, and I'll see you back here at 12:30.